So instead of doing a presentation, I thought I'd do this in TechCrunch style and have Ryan interview me.
And we go way back, so I'm going to give him some shit throughout the interview to make this a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, unfair.
So you met me a little bit earlier if you weren't here. I'm Ryan, the Director of Special Projects over at Galvanize. So we are a data science and web development training facility, as well as we house about 3,000 startups and large corporates looking to grow their businesses and also tap into the innovation economy. And with me is my dear old friend, Joey Hinson from TechCrunch. And Joey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I run operations at TechCrunch. That's what I do.
Okay, so TechCrunch, what's that?
Okay, so TechCrunch has two businesses really, advertising and events, and I am in charge of both of those business units. And then I also fiddle around with business development, so I'll get involved in really weird projects for making money or distributing content or things like that too. Yeah.
Interesting. How do you get involved in those weird projects?
How do I get involved in those
Probably
weird projects? I talk to people like you.
Send you a lot of random introductions.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that doesn't really say much, so in terms of your title, but so what the fuck do you actually do?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of my time on airplanes, coming to places like Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo, pretty cool place, right?
Sao Paulo is an awesome place. It's a beautiful city. I have been pleasantly surprised. I go to places like Africa probably twice a year, China 3 to 4 times a year. I'm in Europe a lot. And basically what I'm doing is looking for cool places to host events, trying to find people that can contribute to TechCrunch, meeting entrepreneurs and also corporate partners that can help us bring some of our projects to life. And I'm constantly looking at ways to get more TechCrunch content in front of more people. So that's generally what I'm doing. Okay,
so rewind just a little bit back to TechCrunch.
Yeah, back to TechCrunch.
Talk to me, viewership, like what's your global audience? Give me some specifics here.
What is TechCrunch? So TechCrunch is a publication. We're an online publication as well as an event company. And our online publication is read by about 20 million people a month. Half of our readership is in the US, about a third of it is in Europe, and about 2/3 or another third of it is in Asia, and then the rest of it is in places like Brazil and Africa and the Middle East. And I should talk a little bit about our focus. We're super focused on early stage companies. That's really the DNA of TechCrunch. So seed, pre-seed companies, that's where our bread and butter was made in the early days. There's this guy, Michael Arrington, he was a lawyer, and he started writing about startups, and that's what he covered. And that's how TechCrunch was started. And then eventually, Michael Arrington got to be known as this, he was called the Kingmaker. If he wrote an article about you on TechCrunch, all of a sudden—
Quite the personality of this guy, if you weren't around for those days.
Yeah. He was very polarizing. Anyway, so he was covering early stage companies. He would write about you, you would get a term sheet. That's just how it was back in those days. And we're still like that. We do cover A, B, C, D, all series X, Y, and Z companies. We cover Google and Apple, but really our heart and soul is with early stage companies and finding really cool new companies.
Okay, interesting. How did you get to TechCrunch? Tell me a little bit about, where'd you come from? Give us your story.
Yeah. So actually, my story is I had a hard-working job. In college, I slung tables at a hotel for a banquet department, and then I took a job at an AV company so I could get myself to California, and I worked my way up the food chain, and I started producing events, and then I started working for an agency, actually, essentially a creative agency, and TechCrunch came to us, and I became the creative producer for TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco. And then TechCrunch was acquired by AOL in 2011-ish. And when that happened, a lot of things fell apart. But I was still there, and the CEO, Nez Desmond, basically came to me and said, look, you're doing this Disrupt thing really good. Come work for TechCrunch. And I worked at TechCrunch, and within a year, they had given me operating responsibility for the entire business side of TechCrunch.
So with that operator, these responsibilities, you decided to take TechCrunch international.
Yep. Yes.
So it's a pretty big leap, right?
Yep.
I mean, how'd that happen?
Well, so when I started at TechCrunch, we didn't have an international presence at all. So we all sat in a room and we thought about what we wanted to do, and we knew we wanted to move internationally. And what we really decided was we wanted to come to markets where we would have the greatest impact. Markets like Nairobi, markets like Lagos, markets like Beirut, and markets like Sao Paulo. But we didn't have any international chops, so we kind of split everything up into baby steps. The first market we went to was Europe, and we landed in Berlin, and we still have an event in Berlin today. It's our only international Disrupt. So that was my first project. And then every year, I've tried to add at least 1 or 2 new markets. So the next market we added was Israel. We set up an event, and we started producing content from Tel Aviv, because Israel has a fascinatingly high volume of entrepreneurs per capita. I mean, as you heard earlier, it's a war zone, and everybody there is an entrepreneur, and everybody's interested in tech. But then, so that was sort of the first step out, and then our first entrance into like kind of an off-shoulder market was Seoul, and that was back in 2014. And then we've come. Seoul was a complete disaster, by the way.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Who messed that one up?
I did. So in Seoul, people like to listen to you pitch very respectfully, and we brought a format of pitching there where it's like you get together in a bar and everybody drinks and everybody's loud. And it was just a failure. Like Google was the sponsor, they hated it, and we attracted 1,000 people to this thing. They were like, oh my God, this was so loud and noisy, it was the worst thing ever. And I, quite frankly, wanted to quit after that, but I did not. But then we kept going, and what we settled on is we would do these startup battlefield, and that seems to work the best cross-culturally, and we learned a lot. And now, this year we ran 4 battlefields, 1 in Paris, 1 in Beirut, 1 here. We're going to Lagos, and then we also we're going to do 1 in Berlin. So I think we've come a long way, and it's also over half of our revenue is international revenue now. So that's kind of cool too.
I mean, revenue in some markets that are very familiar to all of us in the room, but then there are some markets here, like Lagos and in Kenya, and I mean, even Seoul for that matter. Mm-hmm. These aren't the normal startup hubs.
No.
Why these locations?
Well, because we like really interesting problems are being solved here. Like, you know, in Silicon Valley, people are trying to figure out how to, you know, send you more tailored email using AI so that you'll buy more toothpaste. In countries like Beirut.
Wait, you can get subscription toothpaste?
Yes, you can get subscription toothpaste.
Amazing. Toilet paper? What about toilet paper?
Yeah, tailored to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
For your pleasure. So, anyway, so like in Beirut, there was a company there that is printing houses, 3D printing houses in war zones, so that people that are affected by bombs in Syria can have, you know, shelter immediately without having to move a bunch of expensive personnel in. There's a company that's they're basically building an Internet of Things greenhouse in the desert that's able to produce the same tomato that you could produce on a farm in France with like 1/7 of the resources. Those are hard and highly impactful problems that are being solved, and we like to promote and expose entrepreneurs that are doing great things like that to the global investment community.
Yeah, I mean, these are world-changing products at the end of the day. There's, I suppose, a perspective we have in San Francisco doesn't quite allow us to think inside of those boxes.
Yeah, it's a little, I mean, it does, I guess, but I think you see more of that when you get outside of the US.
So speaking of interesting companies, you probably get some of the highest influx of interesting companies from all over the world, including yesterday. How many applications did you receive yesterday for Battlefield?
Yeah, for the Battlefield that we conducted yesterday, we had close to 500 applications. We typically get between 500 and 1,000 applications for these things. So that's, I mean, 300 and 1,000. So that was a pretty decent response. It was a great response.
Right, and that's from all of Latin America, correct?
Yep.
Now, what are some of the ones that really stood out to you?
Yeah, so yesterday, Unima, I don't know if anybody here was at our event yesterday, but Unima was a really interesting company. They basically created a mobile platform that allows you to be diagnosed for various ailments without having to go into the doctor, and I think that's awesome. There's a lot of places here where you just can't get to a doctor, and a company like that, that's doing stuff like that's going to have huge impact. And another one was Space Ag. I love agritech for whatever reason, and they build sensors so that you can that are in the ground or on drones that can tell you how well your produce is doing in the field without having to deploy a lot of time-intensive labor and all that sort of stuff. So it's benefiting your average farmer. It's great.
I didn't know you had a thing for ag tech.
I do.
Some people I should introduce you to.
I love ag tech.
So, I mean, speaking of Sao Paulo, interesting companies that you saw in the region. I mean, we talked a little bit about Brazil this morning. 209 million people, 138% mobile penetration into the market. Why did Brazil come up on your radar regarding TechCrunch's interest in the region?
Yeah, so we look for places that are rapidly growing in terms of VC investment and startup formation. And Brazil is one of the fastest ones in the world right now. In 1999, there was zero VC capital, as far as I can tell through all my research, in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. And this year was one of your biggest years. And since then, Sao Paulo has cumulatively put together $3 billion in VC and early stage investment. So that's a pretty big, point of proof to us, and also the growth curve of it. Companies like 99 are as interesting as Uber and Lyft. So high quality companies have been successful here. And then just overall, we think that Brazil is the most promising technology market in Latin America, other than maybe Mexico City. And then we partnered with Facebook, and Facebook and TechCrunch agreed that this was we could have a really additive impact by operating here on the ecosystem and enforcing it and accelerating the growth here.
Is that why you chose Facebook as a partner to come to Brazil?
Yeah, Facebook is. It's really hard for us to choose partners, and they were like, the alignment was great between the two of us.
Right, and I think even for Brazilians, Brazil's the third largest market, only behind US and India for Facebook.
Yeah.
So, makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the challenges being an international company doing business in Brazil. What was that like?
Yeah, I'd say the government was the biggest challenge we had.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's very hard to move money in and out of Brazil from the US. And not just everything from wire transactions are hard to, being taxed on sending money out, sending money in, and then also being taxed on taking money out, even though you didn't necessarily do anything to create a capital gain on that money. Business arrangements are not necessarily transparent here. That was pretty difficult, and it feels like corruption's kind of built in at the policy level. I know that's a hard thing to say, but when it comes it's just when you put money somewhere, it's like the question comes up: are you trying to launder money and get money out? And that was a hard thing to. It doesn't happen everywhere, and that's a difficult thing. Like we had to give away tickets. We couldn't sell tickets because it was just so difficult to figure out how to sell tickets, you know, and like collect the money and send it back to the U.S. So I would say, yeah, those are the hardest things about operating in Brazil.
You mentioned another example to me earlier about the amount of extra money per dollar that you have to spend to even do business here.
Yeah, it's like
That sounds, I mean, that's crazy. I think everyone should understand how crazy this is.
yeah, it's basically like 30%. It's like 15 going in, 15 going out on every dollar you put into the market. It's the way that we were moving it around. So that was hard.
So every transaction, if you were to spend $100, it would actually be 130 to do that transaction, and that's for every $100 that thereafter. That's
Yeah.
wild. That's
Yeah. Whereas if you're in Europe, right, like there's a 20% VAT tax, but it's offset by any operating losses that you have in market. So that doesn't happen here.
well, okay. Let's think on the bright side here. What's the easiest thing about doing business in Brazil?
So the companies that we got that applied were some of the best companies we've ever had. Like we went through the selection process. It usually takes us like a month or two, and we were done in a week because there were so many great companies, and we were able to just narrow down the list of the companies that we wanted to present. We saw some really, really high quality companies come out of this market, super high quality market.
And also, I think you mentioned just Sao Paulo in general.
Oh,
being
yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. Sao Paulo so we had a great response when we invited people to the event. You know, over 1,000 people signed up in like 5 minutes. And also, Sao Paulo, it was very well organized city too. And when we operate in other markets, the cities aren't quite this put together. I'll just put it that way.
Interesting. We still have to take a Cabify helicopter together.
Yeah, we do.
Has anyone done that yet? Those are yeses with those laughs? You know you can do that, right? Download the Cabify app, and then there's an option to take a helicopter because there are so many. That's crazy. I can't wait. Who would you pick to go in a helicopter with you, Joey?
You.
Me?
Flora.
And Flora?
Yeah, Flora. You and Flora.
Can we add Giselle and Cristiano Ronaldo? I'll sit in the middle.
Whomever.
Okay, perfect. So tell us a bit about how you would pick these companies that participate in
Yeah, I'll
Battlefield.
do that. It's a really quick answer. Basically, we look for companies that have great product. They have to be either pre-seed or seed companies, MVP, with a minimum viable product that don't have it. We try to choose companies that haven't like launched because we want TechCrunch to be the place where you launch your company. So it's pretty simple.
All right. This question is not one we prepared for, but it should be easy.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about Facebook being the obvious answer here, but I'm sure there's some people from the corporate world in this room. How do you choose the large companies, right? Or would you ever look at a local conglomerate, for example, to be your partner coming into the market?
Right. So for our partnerships, we're always looking for people who have strategic interest in startups in the market where we operate. Like, we don't want somebody, it'd be very hard for us to operate with a VC, right? VCs would just be looking to show up and establish dominance. We want all VCs to participate in these things, and we want companies to be exposed to a variety of VCs. So somebody that has a real interest in bringing the overall startup ecosystem, elevating the whole thing from a holistic perspective, that's how we pick our big partners when we move into markets like this. That's like Facebook they want all boats to rise, you know? And that, like when we operated in Australia, there was a company called Elavaco that partnered with us. They were interested in all women entrepreneurs rising, right? So it wasn't about a specific conversion or anything like that. It was like, so somebody that's interested in building the startup ecosystem at its most fundamental level. Those are our best partners.
Do you try to interact with any with big media when you come to places like Brazil?
Yeah.
Anyone from Globo in the room?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I've got a hand up over there. You guys should talk after this.
Yeah. We do. We build up. media partnerships to amplify our efforts when we're here. We could probably be better about it, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'll help you out.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Good.
So back to the startups that are actually participating in Battlefield.
Yeah.
From what I understand, there's a ton of prep work that goes into this. I
Right.
mean, you're taking them from probably a pretty dicey pitch deck to putting them on stage in front of the top investors.
Yeah.
What's that process like?
Yeah, so we take coders that have been sitting in a room, in a dark room, thinking about all the fine details and the nerdy things about
Don't
what
generalize
they're
here,
building.
easy,
Yeah,
easy.
okay, I won't do it. Just kidding. So actually, we get these pitches, and the TechCrunch editorial team takes a look at them, as well as our Battlefield editor, and they basically deconstruct them and build them with the purpose of being media ready, right? And then we also get a very large, well-known VC to participate in this process with us. So we'll go through 2 to 3 weeks of rehearsals and consultation with the entrepreneurs to help them get their pitches together. So you can imagine how impactful that was when we went to Nairobi and we spent 2 to 3 weeks bringing, an editorial perspective and an investment perspective and a business perspective to these guys and girls. And they made, and at the end of it, after this process, the decks they're beautiful and their pitches are great, and they're ready to go stand in front of the biggest VCs in the world, as well as to talk to Bloomberg or TechCrunch or whomever.
I mean, that has to have a tremendous impact on these young companies that you're working with.
Yep.
I'd imagine just from a strictly investment level, but also sort of I would like to talk about that, but also the macro perspective of all the companies that you've worked with in
Right.
Battlefield and the impact that that's had on the market.
Yep, I think it has had a huge impact. I mean, companies have actually changed their products after those because you ask the hard question of like, what does your thing do? What problem does it solve, right? So, and they have to answer those questions. It's not, it's not just building the best code in the world. It's like,
No, it's making sure I get my monthly toilet paper
yeah,
and
exactly.
toothpaste.
Yeah, exactly. So what else?
Do you have any numbers around sort of all the battlefields that TechCrunch has done?
Oh, wow, yeah. So we've been doing Battlefield since 2010, and we've had almost 800 companies compete, and all those companies have collectively raised about $8 billion. We would be if we invested in all the companies that we chose to participate in Battlefield, we'd be a very rich venture capital firm. So, top companies, Fitbit was one of the companies that launched Dropbox. We've had some pretty major names.
I mean, these are billion-dollar additions to the market at the end of the day.
Yep.
That you had a direct hand in. How does it make you feel?
I mean,
Your ego's not that crazy.
I love TechCrunch, so it makes me feel pretty good.
Good. I mean, so, okay, this is cool. Say I'm a startup in the room. How do I get my company on TechCrunch.com?
Yeah, well, make a great thing, make a great product first. Some of the big mistakes that people make when they're trying to get TechCrunch to write about them is they hire a PR person, and the PR person sends a bunch of canned pitches to us, and that just get put in the trash can. The best thing to do is to have a great company, have a great product, and then connect with a writer directly. It's pretty easy. I'm Joey at TechCrunch.com. John Russell is John at TechCrunch.com. Just write us. Our email addresses are super easy to figure out. The writers want to talk to you directly so that they can really get to know you. And so I think that's the best way. And don't send out a blast. Make it individualized.
Do you have any writers who speak Portuguese or Spanish?
Spanish, yes. And I'm hard pressed to think of who that person is right now. Portuguese, I don't think so. But yeah, we do. We have a quasi-multilingual staff. Chinese, we have Mandarin speakers.
So we just talked a little bit about this, but where's TechCrunch headed next? Do you plan on coming back to Brazil?
Do we plan on coming back to Brazil? That's actually, I mean, so where are we headed next? We're going to Nigeria at the end of the year. We're going to Berlin and we're going to Shenzhen all this year. Next year, are we going to come back to Sao Paulo or Rio? We would like to, but I don't know yet, you know.
Can we go to Rio, please? I'm saying we because I'm coming back.
Yeah, you're coming back.
Especially if we're going to Rio.
Yeah, okay.
So I know we wanted to save time to have some questions from the audience, but we also had Alexandre, wherever he is. I think you're going to be joining us on stage, I'm told. Is this correct?
Hi, how are you doing? Pleasure to meet you.
Aha, here it comes. Sorry, I think I was supposed to take that out with me.
Very good.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You two definitely need to be in touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
One of my favorite people that I've met in Brazil.
Oh, fantastic.
Obrigado. Bom, eu vou falar em português, eu acho. No, okay. Let's set it. I'll be speaking English because you guys are not using the translator, so you can get what I say, and everybody who needs it will have the translation. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Do you want me to introduce myself and everything?
Yeah.
No, I'm just waiting for you to ask me.
So, this is the first time we met.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Very
please
good. Well, so my name is Alexandre Mosquin.
Yep.
I work for Votorantim Cimentos.
Okay.
And 1 year and a half ago, we thought about. I work for the IT department, well, let's go very quickly a little back. I have always worked with human development, and then for reasons of life, I started working with IT. And I fell in love with IT. And I was already in love with human development. And those worlds, they don't really connect, right? They didn't, right? But now they do very much. Yeah. And so then when I started working at Votorantim Cimentos, it's one of the biggest corporate groups here in Brazil. It's a Brazilian multinational company, present in more than 27 countries, and the biggest company is the cement company. I started working at Global Architecture and Solutions department, which is the department that connects to the business areas, understand what is the biggest pains, necessities, and then goes to the markets to search for solutions. Yep. So it's obvious that, you know, the open innovation ecosystem would be a great player to find fantastic solutions, right? But actually it wasn't. When we only looked at the Gartner quadrant and for the best players, the biggest players in the market, and because, you know, we're a huge company, we need a huge player to solve our problems, right? But then I saw the opportunity of connecting to the ecosystem, and then starting to advocating about it inside of the company, convincing people, and then we started a program about 1 year and a half ago. And because I wanted to understand what the market did, I started to connect to many companies and doing benchmark. And I realized that usually the companies that you know, do open innovation specifically, which is just one part of innovation, right, connecting to the ecosystem and so on, they didn't have a space to talk to each other, right? We have here in Brazil, for example, we have the Cubo from Itaú that, you know, that solves the density of startups like Google Campus, like InovaBra, and so on. But there is no place that solves the density of corporates, of big companies that wanted to, you know, do open innovation programs and so on. So a lot of companies were, you know, learning and doing I started to, once I was doing benchmark with a lot of companies, I asked companies to start doing benchmark with each other. And we started a small group called Open Innovation BR, only with 4 companies, and say, okay, let's search, let's share knowledge, experiences, information, and so on. And suddenly, this person needs to be there, it was just a WhatsApp group, and very quickly, but really exponentially, it reached the limit of 257 users. And because that's the limit of WhatsApp for a group, and then we had to go to Slack and so on. But what we did is, so let's just meet, let's just talk, let's just share, And we had the first meeting in Rio. It was in May last year. So that's how soon it's very recent. And this meeting had only 20 people. And we had the opportunity of looking in the eyes of the people and sharing knowledge and sharing information, and it was really great because we saw that we share the same pains, we share the same necessities, and and we made the same mistakes, and so we should share more, we should connect more, and then we started doing a lot of events, right? And even participate on events, like for example, we had a panel here where people from Open Innovation BR participated. So we've been participating in events, and we created our own events. So we've been on the 16th edition right now. And until the end of the year, we'll have the 19th edition. And in those events, we actually connect not only corporates, but many different actors from the ecosystem, even government and the startups themselves, and accelerators, incubators, and investors and everything. All really research institutes, which I believe, here in Brazil, when we talk about open innovation, people really think only about startups. It's like the startup environment, and I keep on advocating, saying, come on, open innovation is a lot broader than this. Mm-hmm. Do you know the cartoon Thundercats? We say it's like the Thundera eye. You have to see beyond sight, have the vision beyond sight, and we say you need to have the vision beyond startups.
I think that's more Joey's time than it is mine, but yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So I'm sorry. It's a very long story, but just to explain how the Open Innovation BR was created and everything. Yeah. And so I still I work with Votorantim Cimentos. We created the Open Innovation Program inside of Votorantim Cimentos, but there is this broader work called Open Innovation BR that it's really part of my life.
So what kind of, so you guys are looking for, you're looking to support the ecosystem, but not specifically acquire particular technologies, or what's going on there?
Yeah, we really want to understand what we're from the corporate side, right? We really want to understand the demands, what the companies need, and not only what they need on technology itself, but what they need on the structure of open innovation, right? We've created many different groups. Thematic groups. For example, we have one called Open Innovation Structural Hackers. So we have the law department, you have the governance and risk control department, all those departments from many different companies together discussing the best way to have a structure to work with the open innovation ecosystem. So we want to understand what are all the necessities from the big companies and what are the structures that need to be built to provide them the support. And that's what has been done. And it's 100% organic. It's it's just really right now we're trying to find a better way to do it, but the only way we do it is through WhatsApp groups. Yeah. Brazilians love WhatsApp, right? Yeah.
The world loves WhatsApp.
Yeah. So we have a few WhatsApp groups specifically about different themes. We have the Open Innovation Human that talks about talent and culture and things like this, and so on. right? And anyone can participate, right, on those groups. It's completely open, and you know, there's no charge of anything. But the real meaning of it is really fomenting the ecosystem, making the connections really happen.
But also you're looking to sort of bring a, you know, sort of structure, corporate structure that's kind of, how old is the company?
Votorantim Cimentos?
Yes.
80 years old. The group is 100 years old, but Votorantim Cimentos is 80 years old.
So you're looking for a way to kind of make this thing move faster?
On zero budget, by the way.
Yeah. Is that what's happening?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And where has the company been affected? Like, where have you guys seen impact? Like,
We ran 7 pilots with the 7 startups, and we hired 1 startup. And that's what we are looking for, right? Right now, with zero budget, right?
Like not just zero budget, Joey, but each 7 startups had to do the pilot for free.
Yeah, non-paid pilots. I said that, I don't know if you were here when I said that, but I said that's the worst way you can work with a startup, because when you have a non-paid pilot,
startup.
What?
It's the best way to kill a startup.
To kill, yeah. Well, you can do a non-paid pilot, and then you validate the product, and then you hire the startup, and then it's a dream. We even call this, because we need to have a purpose behind, and we create the concept of angel client. Mm-hmm. And that's it, right? Because, for example, one contract that we have with this startup, it's a 5 million per year contract.
Right.
So it's really like an angel investor, but no equity involved, no exclusivity, so it's a dream for a startup, right? So that's why they do non-paid pilots, because, they have that carrot in front of them, and they want to achieve it, right? They want to have an angel client, right? Yeah. But we have to deal with the scarcity, because the companies, the ecosystem, or the big companies, they still need to be proven, right? They need to prove that it brings value. They need to prove that, and that's the way we were able to manage to do. Yeah. And I'm talking specifically about the case of Votorantim Cimentos. There are a lot of mature companies. You have, for example, Telefónica here doing this for 20 years. They have Wida. They invest on startups. They have, we have different levels of maturity here. But there are many companies that are willing to try. And I became I became a reason to believe, right?
Yeah. So the startup that's a supplier, what do they do? What service do they provide?
Yeah, this startup that we hired, they have artificial intelligence and computer vision applied to analyzing satellite images for specifically for our reality. We use it for mineral exploitation, right? Oh wow! And we have the mineral rights, right? We have the rights to explore just one specific area, and the ways that this is measured. For example, we have an example that we say that it's like the neighbor's fence here in Brazil. They always discuss that the fence is here or there because the point of reference, and it's exactly the same thing for the mineral exploitation, and sometimes the government say, oh, you were exploring more than you should, but we are not. And then there is a big discussion. Now there is not anymore, because we have a geo-referenced satellite image that proves exactly where we are exploring and everything.
So how were you doing this before this company?
I used to make a joke saying that it was all digital because it was all doing by hand, right? You go with your finger on the image, and then you see, you measure. It was all completely done by hand. How long did people measuring physically, people going there, going to the field, and even being exposed to a lot of danger, because one thing is the mineral exploitation, and another thing is reforestation, because we have to reforest, right, when we exploit. And then sometimes you have to go to places which is really in the middle of the forest, so you expose yourself to danger. Yeah. So it was all done by really people going to the field and measuring and doing everything by hand.
Right.
Now it's 100% digital. Like with this, we have, of course, it's a projection, but of a 12 million per year reduction for the company.
12 million real? Or?
Yes, of
Real,
course.
right.
Yeah.
And that's pretty impressive. Did this company receive funding after they? Not, I mean, you guys hired them, but did
we just hired them.
Right.
We're just an angel client, right?
Right,
but after this, you can imagine, right?
Where's Pedro? Pedro,
Yeah,
are you listening to this back there?
What's the name of this company?
The name of this company is Geoinova.
Geoinova?
Yeah. They are from Goiânia, which is a region here in Brazil. And of course, after they have this success case with Votorantim Cimentos, now they are being called by many other companies. And I think they're not even looking for investment, because probably they won't need it, because they have achieved the scale they need. Now they have a validated product. They have, and that's something that we have to discuss. That's something that, because they could have, exponential scale.
Exactly. They could also, you guys could break your contract with them, and then they don't have another client right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a big
That's
strategic risk,
It's
right?
a risk,
Like,
yes.
Which, I mean...
But we have a 5-year contract with them.
Yeah. But in 5 years, like, who knows what will happen, right?
Exactly.
Their technology could be...
Exactly.
Google could have done it for you, right?
Yeah, this is something that anyone would, because technology is available to anyone, right? You probably, the solution that I just described to you, you probably know
I don't.
a dozen or whatever
I don't, but
companies that do it.
Yeah, I mean, things move rapidly. It's an interesting, do you guys, do you think your PR team is really good at talking about these opportunities that you have? Yeah, like I can't even imagine how you set that up to get that company into the pipeline.
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work. But seriously, it was a lot of hard work. We have an expression here in Brazil that says that you have to spend sole, right? The sole of your shoe.
Shoe leather.
Shoe leather, yeah. You have to spend shoe leather, and that's what we did. Like we went all over Brazil. We went to universities. We went to, all the ecosystems that, even the biomes, right? Because I believe the ecosystem is everything together.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we went to, for example, Porto Digital in Recife. We went to São Pedro Valley. Brazil now has a map of the ecosystem with funny names. It's very interesting. I like it, actually. So I went physically to many different places to talk about, and then we talked to local media. We talked to, it was a very, very difficult job. The first cycle, we hired one company to help us. We hired a specific company. There are many companies in Brazil doing this, right? They say, oh, well, I have a database of 1,000 startups. I have the best database. There are many companies even selling the databases of startups here in Brazil. And we hired one company because it was our first experience, right? Mm-hmm. And we thought that was enough. We thought, okay, we hired a company to do this, so we don't have to do the job, right? Wrong, completely wrong. And then, almost too late, we found out that we had to do the work ourselves, because it doesn't work. It's not authentic when it's not you there, right?
Yeah.
And then we very quickly needed to do that. So that's how we attracted all of those talents. We had 117 startups enrolled. And then we selected 7 to run 7 completely different pilots, right? Completely different challenges, right?
Wow, it's a lot of hard work. And did you set up like the particular problem that you were trying to solve? Did you communicate that really clearly?
Yeah, we did that, and it was very interesting because today we heard from an accelerator saying that this is one of the biggest problems, because the companies come with a challenge that it's so very well detailed that this is not innovation, this is research and development, right?
Yeah. But
we did exactly this. We did exactly this. We went to first, we needed to understand, of course, the strategy of the company, where the company wants to get and everything, and what connected to this needs to be done. So what are the gaps? and in which gaps do we need help?
Yep.
Almost in all of the gaps, of course. Now we know it.
Yeah.
And then we got those gaps, and then we nominated teams of specialists on those areas, and then we went with a lot of design thinking and everything to go to get really to the bottom of it, to understand what the real challenge is, and then we described our challenge without thinking of the solution, of course.
Right.
That was a big challenge because we always think about the solution, right? So we described the challenge, and then we posed those 7 challenges to the ecosystem. So when we went to the ecosystem, we already had those 7 challenges very well described.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sounds like you need a media partnership. Where's Globo? Are they still in the room?
Media? Are there media partners there? Yeah.
Well,
Do
cool.
you foresee yourself doing another one of these projects coming up? When's the next challenge that you're coming up with?
Yeah. Right now, we are on the 2nd cycle, and it's really related specifically to concrete. It was completely different. We had only 14 startups enrolled because when I say, oh, we have challenges related to concrete, and people say, yeah, I'm not a startup that it has concrete solutions. I know it's a play on words, but I don't know the concrete market and things like this. And then we had to redo all of our communication, saying, okay. You're a startup and you work with sensors, right? Yes. So that's what we need. We need sensors to be put on the concrete on our beton truck. Is that how you say the concrete truck?
Yes.
Yeah, in our beton truck to measure the volume of concrete that it's coming out. That's the only thing we need. Oh, okay. So we need to redo our communication because of this. But we had right now is concrete, right? That we are working with. Next cycles will probably be logistics, Industry 4.0, and so we're still thinking about what next challenges will be.
Yeah,
right?
It seems like if you came to me as a concrete company and I was a startup and you said, "Hey, solve a concrete problem," I would be like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Because all I think of is like a big gray mess, sort of being poured. But I mean, when you talk about it in terms of minerals and like logistics and supply and
bacteria that produces limestone as a byproduct that self-heals a concrete, it exists.
Yeah, the real cases actually.
I could imagine as an 80-year-old company, you have some people in the corporation would have a hard time sort of breaking all of those pieces out, right?
Yeah, actually, this is another conversation that we just had here, saying we are an 80-year company, and Votorantim Cimentos Votorantim Cimentos sees itself as a very traditional company, but we have always been so innovative. This is, I'm not gonna retell the whole story that I just told. That big companies see themselves as dinosaurs. But they are actually unicornosaurs. They have the unicorn DNA inside of them because they were born with entrepreneurial mindset. Everybody here in Brazil knows about the family that founded the Votorantim group, the whole group, right? And so many other Brazilian groups and the entrepreneurial mindsets that they had and how much innovation they've done to be where they are, because they wouldn't exist if they didn't do any innovation, right? Yep. This is, and this is a story that I keep on repeating and saying that those companies are not traditional. It's like the ugly duck syndrome, right?
Yes.
It's seriously that's what I've been saying, and that's what I've been repeating inside of Votorantim Cimentos, and people say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. So yeah, actually, what you're doing is what our founders did. 100 years ago. Oh, that's, so people are actually connecting and understanding that, I'm not doing something completely different. I'm not disrupting and breaking. I'm just doing what
you're going back to your roots.
Yeah. Going back to the roots. Yep. Actually, this was very funny because our onboarding of the startups, they start on what we call Memória Votorantim. It's like the museum of Votorantim. And then when they start telling the story of Votorantim to the startups connect themselves to the Votorantim, because it's like it's just an entrepreneur trying and doing, and then it became a huge group, right? But then also when you hear the story of Votorantim, you see so many innovation, And then I even talking to the historian, because there is a historian specialist on the history of Votorantim, and I say, oh, this is what you did 100 years ago. So you pivoted from cloth to cement.
Wow.
But you maintain your structure, with your industrial structure and everything. Yeah. So imagine a company that pivoted 100 years ago, and this is something that we say now it's very innovative, right? And so many other things that I can describe. Yeah. And we are working with Memória Votorantim to retell the story of Votorantim to Votorantim, actually, and of course the market and everything. Because inside of the company, when you start talking, they don't recognize themselves as innovative, but there's so much innovation in it.
Right. Very cool. Very cool.
Well, I've been signaled that we have come to the end of our session. I think we're cutting into happy hour, which I would love a beer.
Yeah.
If I would love to invite you
me
gentlemen to a
too.
beer.
Wow.
So thank you both. Thank you, Joey,
thank you.
for staying an extra day in Brazil.
Yes.
And Alex, thank you for coming up and sharing
Thank you
about your
very
story.
much.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's more than a pleasure to meet you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.